Hi, dividend hunters. Thanks for checking back again for another weekly update on my experiment. It was nice to see the portfolio was up a little bit on the week. Stay tuned and I'll show you the details. I'm hunting for an infinite stream of dividend income, and my plan is to turn $1,000 of Robinhood's money into $1,000 of my money. Of course, you need to do your own research for your investments. I'm just a random guy on the internet, so don't do what I do. So over the past week, the account value on Robinhood went up $8.50, which is about a 0.4% gain. And this dollar amount represents the value of funds that I own outright, primarily PAAA, and the gains or losses in this case of the ETFs that I took out on margin. To illustrate that, if we go and take a look at PAAA, you'll see that I actually have an account balance of $2,325. I own these shares outright. But when you combine that with the losses of the ETFs that I purchased on margin, we end up with this 2137 figure. My buying power has a little bit left in it. These are just funds that I haven't had a chance to reinvest. My margin status is low risk. I'm at 5.82% above my maintenance minimum. We can go and look at the margin screen. You can more easily see my buffer is about $123. Here's a look at the margin maintenance ratios. These don't really apply to me because I'm dealing with the $2,000 minimum account balance. This would be a lot more important if the values that I was dealing with were larger. NVYY continues to have the highest maintenance ratio at 50%, and that makes sense because it's a 2x leveraged ETF. Now let's turn to dividends. NVYY paid me 35 cents per share for a total of $3.99. That represents about a 97% annualized yield. I split the dividend in half, reinvested part of it into NVYY again, and the other half went into SPY. Nivi's paid me $108.58 so far during this experiment. And just below this dividend, you can see some total dividend amounts. And this week, I passed $300 in total dividends received when you exclude dividends received from PAAA. Unfortunately, although I've received $300 in dividends, the account is still down. COIW paid me just under 24 cents per share, and it continues its streak of sub $2 distribution for me, meaning I can't reinvest all of the dividends each week. I generally have to save 2 weeks worth of dividends before I can reinvest it back into COIW. 24 cents per share represents about a 56% annualized yield, so that's not too exciting for this fund. If we scroll over to HOOW, it paid me about 65 cents per share, which represents about a 66% annualized yield. And I'll have to wait till I get next week's distribution to add it to this one's before I can reinvest it back in the fund. Snowy paid me a little over 8.5 cents per share for a grand total of only $1.51. And that only represents a 35% annualized yield. So that's also pretty disappointing. Here we have the price return for my 4 high yield ETFs and SPY for the week. SPY was about 0.75% in the positive, while all the rest were in the negatives. Minus 4%, minus 3 1/3, minus 3 1/3, minus 1 1/3. This week, I thought I'd take a deeper look into SNOY and see how it's been doing since this experiment started. As you can see here, my initial buy was on July 29th of 2025 at $16.54 per share. This is the log of all of my dividend reinvestments. And you can see for a while it stayed in that $15 to $16 range up until around November when it started falling. And since then, it's fallen down to a current share price of $11.88. Even though I've been reinvesting regularly, the amounts have been so small that the cost per share has only fallen down to $16.29. And if we go back to Robinhood, you can see that my spreadsheet calculations are right because it also calculates my average cost at $16.29. Here's a look at that performance on a graph, starting at my initial purchase date in late July. I have QQQ on here for context, and as you can see, over this period, it's up about 11%. SNOI, the fund that I invested in, is down about 3.75%, and SNOW, the underlying fund, is just slightly positive. So I have to say it's disappointing that the underlying is positive and the yield max version that I own is negative in total return. The real story with these funds is in the price return. So if we change that out over that same period, we see a stark contrast. QQQ, for context, is up about 10.5%. SNO, the underlying, is just a little positive. And SNOI, my fund, is down 28% in price. So essentially, it's been paying me back my own money, and I've also been paying a management fee. Because remember, the total return for SNOI was negative, while the underlying was positive. Here's a look at SNOI's dividend amount since I made my initial purchase. Sometime in this middle October timeframe, SNOI changed from a monthly to a weekly distribution. And since then, you can see it's trended down along with the share price. In this graph, I've added the price return so you can see how they've both been trending down. I believe that this week's 8.5 cents per share is the lowest dividend amount that the fund has ever distributed. And here's a look at the portfolio broken down by each position. SNOI is actually my second best performing ultra high yield ETF, and it's still down 17%. NVYY is performing the best, down a little under 15%, while the two roundtail funds are doing really poorly, both of them down over 55%. So my four ultra high yield ETFs combine to be down about 37%, offset by my SPY-I position, which is pure profit, and the portfolio is down about 20% or 21%, and that's not counting the value of PAAA. So once again, even though this week the market did some good things, my portfolio is looking bleak. I'm not sure exactly where this is headed or what I may need to do to change things around, but I appreciate everyone coming back and checking in with me. And if you found this entertaining or helpful, it only takes a second and it means a ton if you would just like and subscribe. And remember, none of this is financial, investing, legal, or tax advice. I'm just inviting you along my journey. And if you'd like to learn more about my small account margin strategy, check out the first 5 videos in the series. Good luck hunting those infinite dividends. Take care.